Doesn't have to be exact here. This is only going to hold the binding on. Does everybody use tape in their shops now for enclosure panels? Yeah. So this is the only piece of tape that goes on this user. One piece of 1/4 inch tape, and everything else is, and I'll show you the process there, but everything else is just laid on and sewn by hand. This is a technique that I developed, years ago. It's not the only way. It's probably not the best way. It's just my way. It's what I was comfortable with. In my shop, there was razor blades for almost every application for clear vinyl. I don't know if anybody else is using razor blades or using scissors. I had carpal tunnel surgery when I was 27 years old. I had been a fabricator for a long time, and I just, every chance that I get to use a razor blade, I would. Does anybody else use razor blade for clear vinyl? One person? You guys, everybody's going to have their hand up by the end of the day. I promise you that. So right now, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to cut the glass. I'm just going to score it. Just scratch it with the surface of the razor blade. These are Olfa razor blades. You can get them online. These are the high carbon one. It's designated by ABB. So if anybody wants to, afterwards take a note of that or take a picture. All I'm going to do is just score the glass, and I'm staying just inside of my 1/4 inch seam tape. And I'm just lightly pressing down on the glass. I've got some scrap glass here. Everybody can kind of practice or see what I'm doing afterwards. But basically, I'm just kind of scratching the surface with this razor blade.
One thing we've always said at these seminars is when anybody's doing a presentation, it's not the right way or the wrong way, it's just their way.
It's just a way.
So you may or may not do it exactly the same, or you may do it similar, but it's all a learning process. Maybe this is a better way than the way you've done it.
I promise you that everybody's going to have their hands up about using a razor blade here. So this is just 3/4 inch bias cut binding. Bias cut is very important instead of straight cut. Straight cut does not want to go around the corner. Bias cut loves to go around the corners. One problem that there is with bias cut binding is you got these splices. And the nature of the bias cut, they cut it on an angle. You got about 8 foot in between splices. In this application, I would never use a splice because that thread is going to fail. It's going to fade. It's going to turn white in this situation, and I just wouldn't want that on my boat, and I wouldn't expect my customers or your customers to want it on their boat. So it's the nature of the beast. Just check. Here's a splice right here. I'm just going to cut it out. Okay, you can use that for something else. You can use it for a roll-up strap or whatever. I'm just measuring. I know that this is about a 4-foot U-zip, and I know what my wingspan is, and so I'm just kind of guesstimating that. So I need 3 pieces of binding. I need.
Are you smelling it?
No, I'm measuring it. I'm measuring it to my nose. See, here's a splice. I'm going to cut that out. So wingtip to wingtip, I'm 6 foot.
What trick is that? I want to know.
I'm 6 foot tall. My fingertip to fingertip is 6 foot. I'm 6'2". So it's about 6 foot or 2 yards. All right. So this is 3 foot. This is 4 foot. And when I lay that around, I'm going to have a couple inches
Results
extra.
may vary per person.
Yeah.
Results.
Of course, yeah, of course. So again, this is the one that had this short one here is the one that had to splice it. I'm just going to set that aside. Okay, so now I've got my 3 pieces of binding, and I've got my coil zipper. Right? So I've got my tape on here and I've got it scored. Well, the first thing I need to do is prep this binding, okay? Because when I put this binding on, I need to be able to sew through both edges, okay? Because this is a glued, folded seam, and I don't want to have that. I don't want to rely on that because I'm afraid that it's going to let go if I don't stitch it down. I'm going to stitch through the edge on both of these pieces, one edge only. Also, you can see that there's kind of a natural curve to that bias binding. The narrower this spool, the more you use the spool, and the further down towards the end you get, the more pronounced that curve is. So a lot of times when I would get down towards the end, I would set that spool aside for this color I knew I was going to be able to use, because when you took the last 10 yards of this, it's really curved, and that just makes it easier to work with. So I'm gonna work with these curves, understanding that I want to make a smile. Okay. Now I'm gonna put them on the sewing machine. This is fair warning. I haven't really sat behind the sewing machine much in the last 6-7 years, and this is not my sewing machine. So I'm gonna do the best I can I'm going to sew on the inside curve where that edge is. And I'm not going to lock my stitches here. And I'm going to leave my, leave a little tag. So I'm going to sew in just a few inches where my straight part is.
A little clamp.
So what I want to do is I want to, along with sewing that edge down to keep that glued edge from undoing, I also want to introduce a little more curve here. And so I'm just going to kind of position the binding with one hand so I can deliver it through there. And then I'm going to pinch my thread just a little bit. This is just my top thread. I don't want to really adjust the binding, adjust the tension. This is not my machine, and I don't really want to adjust the tension much. But by me just pinching this thread as I'm sewing, you should see that it's starting to add a little bit more curve to it. It's not a lot, but it's just a little bit. There's different ways to do this, but it's just what I found to be the easiest. And then towards the end, I'm going to do it straight. I'm just going to let it go again. And then I'm not going to lock my stitch here, and I'm going to leave my tags a little bit long, like that. And so you should be able to see that by doing that, by pinching that thread, see how much curve I added to that? Okay, that's just going to make it that much easier once I put it on the product. I'm going to do the same thing with the 1¼ inch, again, working with that inside edge curve. This machine has a foot pedal for the foot lift, which is unique to me. I've never sewn in a machine like that, so I'm always looking for the knee lift. You may see me screw something up here in a minute, but again, I'm just putting a little bit of tension. If you put too much tension, you can either break the thread or really cause it to bunch up too much. I'm not trying to do that. I just want to add a little bit more curve. And towards the end, I'm just going to let it go because it goes straight. Don't lock the stitching, leave a little tag. The reason you don't want to lock the stitches, if you get it bunched up, and if you've locked your stitch, then you're kind of forced into that because you can't really stretch the thread. If I had it bunched up here, I could kind of pull it and get some of that fullness out of it again. So again, I'm just trying to kind of mimic this curve that we have in the user. All right, so we're on the outside of the panel. I'm going to start with the outside edge first. Then I'm going to tape this binding down. I still haven't made one single mark on this enclosure panel. If I was, I would use my white pencils, but I really don't want to.
Grease pencil or?
I would use a white water-soluble pencil, like this, because
And where can you get one of those from?
your suppliers carry them. I think there's some on the table back there.
They'll be gone by the end of the day.
I know that. There are two different types of pencils out there, the white pencils. There's one that's got harder lead, and it's well suited for marking on canvas. This one has got the blue one, blue pencil, has a softer lead, and it writes on clear vinyl very well. It tends to get real gummy when it's hot and humid, and I live in Florida, and I swear that that's what turned my hair gray from wearing this pencil behind my ear all the time. But it could have happened that way, right? So as I'm going around the corner, I'm just putting a little bit of tension here. Again, I don't want to pull it too tight, but I do want this piece of 3/4 inch to lay nice and flat. And because I'm using that super sticky tape, it sticks down very well to the binding here. So after it's done, I'm just going to run my thumbnail around it and just kind of press it down. Okay, I always leave a few inches extra on the top. That'll get trimmed off at the end. Okay, so now it's taped on the outside. That's all I've done. Now I'm going to go and sew my zipper on. When I sew my zipper on, I'm going to line it up with the outside edge. And I'm going to stitch through the zipper, the glass, and the binding all at once. Leave a couple inches long here at the top. And in this situation, I'm going to lock my stitches here because this is a permanent thing here and I don't want this to come off. The idea here is you're taking a straight zipper and forcing it around the corner. And when I do that, I concentrate mostly on the teeth. because when I get done with this thing, I want it to lay nice and flat. I don't want to have any puckers or folds or pinches in it. And so in order to do that, I concentrate mostly on the teeth. And I don't know if anybody can see or not, but as I work this around, one edge is really full, got like a bacon edge to it, and the other edge curls up because it's going short. And that's okay. I know that it's going to do that, and I just kind of force it into place when I do. So by keeping the zipper teeth flat, I'm sort of stretching that polyester tape around the corner there just a little bit. And I'm just lining it up with the edge, looking through the glass. In my shop, when I was working on enclosure panels, this table would be covered by a fitted bed sheet cover that I made. Just so I went to Goodwill or Walmart or whatever, and bought some bed sheets, cut them apart, cut all the hems out of them, sewed them together, and then wrapped them around the corners and snapped them underneath the corners of the table.
And if you notice, we have snaps, and those snaps over there is exactly what you're talking about, the snaps that are actually on the table. I haven't made one for this table, it came off that table, but I do the same thing, and I have a little hole cut out to where just the needle goes through there, and I snap the whole sheet over there, and not worrying about a scratch. You can throw that glass on there and never have to worry about getting any kind of scratches.
Yeah, because this is just a demo, I'm not concerned about it, but it is strata glass, and it is not, honestly, not very scratched anyways. Again, I lock my stitch again. So you can kind of see that zipper is kind of standing straight out from the edge now. And again, that's because I really kind of forced it down and made that nice curve. From here, I'm going to sew the inside portion of the zipper, and I'm going to sew as close as I can to the teeth. One thing that I forgot to mention is I have a custom foot that I brought with me, and I put it on this machine. Most sewing feet have a narrow side and a wide side. Okay, everybody's got one of these on their sewing machine. I couldn't quite figure out why there was one wide and one narrow, so I took mine, I grabbed it with a pair of vice grips, I put it on the grinder, and I made them both the same. So this foot that I have on here, both sides are narrow like that, which allows me to sew equidistant from the zipper teeth on either side of the foot. So now I'm going to go straight up against the teeth as close as I can. I'm only sewing through just the zipper and the clear vinyl now, because that 3/4 inch binding is right to the center edge of the zipper teeth, and I'm outside of that.
Have you ever thought about doing, we call it a suck-up zipper, or a suck-up stitch, the stitch that you put on your facing? Have you ever thought about doing a suck-up stitch on the zipper?
I've tried it, but the way that the method that I developed, I didn't really need to do that.
Okay.
So what I'm doing now is I'm holding down on the teeth. I'm trying to make those teeth as flat as possible. I'm pushing it down so it's flat. I'm pushing it in towards the center of the panel so that there's no fullness in it. And then with my other hand, I'm just kind of holding the zipper tape out towards the edge, and that's what gives you the bacon edge kind of wrinkleness. Again, my key here is to just make the teeth as flat as possible, just kind of ignore everything else. Again, it's a zipper. I like to stitch it down at the end. Trim my threads. So now, see how full that edge is right there? Okay, but the teeth themselves are laying really flat, and this outside tape is nice and smooth. Okay. from here, I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to sew my 1.25" that had that gather up stitch to it. I'm going to sew that around the outside edge. And when I sew that, you'll notice that I did all my stitching so far from the inside where the zipper is. The zipper's in place, it's not going anywhere. Now, what I need to do is I need to get rid of that bacon edge, and I need to get ultimately my outside flap on there. So here's what really makes this kind of unique and really makes it work. You know what your feed dogs are on the sewing machine? The gathering thing at the bottom? The feed dogs. Well, somebody taught me a long time ago that if you work it, those feed dogs will do half the effort for it, half the work, because they're down there going like this, gathering up the material. And so what I'm going to do is when I'm sewing this, I'm going to hold a little bit of pressure back, and I'm going to let those feed dogs do the work. They used to call it feed the dogs. Right? So I would hold back a little bit on the canvas, or in this case the clear vinyl. When I got to that full area where the zipper was puckered. So remember I sewed the inside edge down and I sewed it tight so that it would gather up a little bit. I'm going to go right through that same row of stitches, and I'm going to try and just go right over top. Nobody will ever know that there's a second row of stitches there. The flat area, just going to lay it down like this. As you get to the corner, I'm going to pull the binding just a little bit to make it lay flat as possible. And when I get into the corner, I'm going to hold back. So I'm just like holding back on the clear vinyl, making the machine really pull it through, and it should smooth out that bacon edge. So you can see by holding it back, it really smoothed that out. I do have a couple of little folds here because it's just natural when I'm showing people. But it really smoothed that whole corner out. This one here, if this were a real job, I would probably cut that stitch and smooth it out a little bit more, best I could. But by holding back on that and really making the feed dogs do the work, it just smooths out that inside corner. So remember, I showed everybody about, I scored the glass, and I told everybody you probably want to get a razor blade for your shop. So because you score the glass, it almost acts like drywall. I don't know if anybody's ever done any remodeling project where you've had drywall at your house, but clear vinyl works just like sheetrock. So you score it, and it gives it a natural place to peel. So you can just cut it and just peel it apart. I mean, I've only had my scissors out twice and cut mine. So now I've got two separate pieces. I'm going to sew the outside, the outside edge of this 1 1/4 inch flap down to the clear vinyl. I started with the 1/4 inch tape. I got an 1 1/4 binding on the outside plus 1/4 inch. Gives me 1.5 inches, which is exactly the width of my zipper. And so, you want to see the edge? It's a nice clean cut edge. So now I'm just going to sew the outside edge of that. Sorry?
That's going to be your range.
Yep, that's my range one.